One drop of blood from your finger. That's all it would take. No needles, no vials, no lab. A small black box on your kitchen counter would run 200 medical tests, cholesterol, cancer markers, infections from a single prick in minutes for a few dollars. That was the promise. It made a 19-year-old college dropout the world's youngest self-made female billionaire. It put statesmen and generals on her board and her face on every magazine cover. Investors handed her hundreds of millions of dollars. There was just one problem. The box didn't work. It never worked. And while investors celebrated, that broken machine was handing real sick people results about their own blood that were flat out wrong. This is Theranos, how a black turtleneck, a deep voice, and a beautiful story fooled Silicon Valley, Washington, and Wall Street all at once. Every great fraud needs a great origin story. Elizabeth Holmes had a perfect one. She grew up telling people she was afraid of needles. At 19, a student at Stanford, she dropped out to fix that fear for everyone, to reinvent the blood test. She wore a black turtleneck, spoke in a startlingly deep voice, and talked about changing the world with the calm certainty of a prophet. People said she was the next Steve Jobs. She encouraged it. The pitch was irresistible. A device, she called it the Edison, that could run a full panel of tests on a single drop of blood from a fingertip. Cheap, painless, available at your corner pharmacy. It would democratize healthcare and save lives. Money poured in. By 2014, Theranos was valued at $9 billion, and Holmes, who owned half of it, was worth $4.5 billion on paper. Magazines crowned her a genius. She gave TED Talks, she met presidents, and in Silicon Valley, fake it till you make it wasn't a warning. It was the business model. Here's the trick that made Theranos untouchable. It wrapped itself in credibility it hadn't earned. Look at the board of directors. For a company reinventing medical science, you'd expect doctors and lab experts. Theranos had almost none. Instead, its board was a wall of American power, former secretaries of state, senators, a legendary general. Men whose names alone made people stop asking questions. Then came the partners. Theranos signed deals to put its blood testing centers inside major American pharmacy and grocery chains, real machines, in real stores, for real customers. And the money agreed. Investors valued the company at $9 billion without ever being shown independent proof that the technology worked. Holmes refused to show it. She called the details trade secrets. The board accepted it, the partners accepted it, the press accepted it. Nobody with the power to check ever looked inside the box, because the box was surrounded by so many important people. Checking felt almost rude. That's how a company with no working product became worth $9 billion. Not by hiding the truth in a spreadsheet, but by burying it under prestige. Now, the secret at the center of it all. The Edison couldn't do what Holmes said it could. Not close. A single drop of blood is tiny, and it's the wrong kind of sample for most tests. The device was unreliable, and could only run a small handful of tests, nowhere near 200. So inside the lab, Theranos did something desperate. To keep up the illusion, it secretly ran most of its tests not on the Edison at all, but on modified commercial machines bought from other companies, the very competitors Holmes claimed to be crushing. And to force a fingertip's worth of blood through machines built for a full vial, technicians diluted the samples with saline. Diluting a sample changes the numbers. So the results Theranos sent back to real patients were often wildly, dangerously wrong. People were told they might be having a miscarriage when they weren't, told their cancer markers were spiking when they weren't. Inside the company, scientists knew. Some raised the alarm. And this is where the story turns dark. Employees who questioned the results were isolated, marched out by security, and buried under crushing legal threats from some of the most feared lawyers in America. Fear ran the building. Holmes and her deputy and secret boyfriend, Sonny Balwani, ruled by paranoia. The most advanced technology in the room wasn't the blood analyzer. It was the machine for silencing anyone who told the truth. Every fraud in this series dies the same way. Someone refuses to stay quiet. At Theranos, it was two young employees barely out of college. One of them, a lab worker named Erica Chung, saw the failing quality control data with her own eyes. The other was named Tyler Schultz, and here is the twist. His grandfather was one of the powerful statesmen on the Theranos board. Tyler tried to warn his own grandfather that the company was a fraud. His grandfather didn't believe him. He believed Holmes. These kids took what they knew to a reporter, John Carreyrou, at the Wall Street Journal. And Theranos came after them with everything it had: private investigators, lawyers threatening to destroy them, pressure on their families. But in October 2015, the story ran. The journal revealed that Theranos was barely using its own device and that its results couldn't be trusted. Holmes went on television and called it wrong. She fought. She smiled. She insisted the doubters would be proven wrong. They weren't. Regulators inspected the lab and found it a danger to patient health. The pharmacy partner shut down every testing center, and Forbes, which had once crowned her a billionaire, quietly revised her net worth to a single number: 0. In 2018, Theranos dissolved. $9 billion in value. Gone. But unlike a bankrupt bank or a crashed token, this fraud left real patients who had made real medical decisions based on fake blood tests. The government charged Holmes and Balwani with fraud for deceiving investors out of hundreds of millions of dollars. At trial, Holmes took the stand for days. She admitted mistakes but denied fraud, and pointed at Balwani, alleging he had controlled and abused her. In January 2022, the jury delivered its verdict: guilty on 4 counts of defrauding investors. Balwani was convicted on all 12 counts against him. Holmes was sentenced to more than 11 years in federal prison. Balwani to nearly 13. They were ordered to pay $452 million in restitution. Holmes appealed. In February 2025, a federal appeals court rejected her, affirming the convictions, the sentences, and the full restitution order. And, as recently as January 2026, from inside a Texas prison, Elizabeth Holmes was reportedly asking the president to commute her sentence and set her free. So here's what Theranos really teaches you, and it's more dangerous than any accounting trick. FTX hid its lie in code, Enron hid it in footnotes, Wirecard hid it in a foreign bank account. Theranos didn't hide its lie at all. It displayed it on magazine covers, on famous board members, in a founder so charismatic that checking her work felt like an insult. The fraud wasn't in a document, it was in a story. And the story was so good that doctors, generals, journalists, and billionaires all decided that verifying it was someone else's job. That's the trap. We're trained to treat confidence as competence, prestige as proof, and a great narrative as evidence. Theranos weaponized all three, and the cost wasn't just money. Somewhere out there are people who got a terrifying result about their own body from a machine that was never real. So the lesson is simple, and it might save you more than money someday. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof, not extraordinary storytellers. When someone won't let you look inside the box is the whole scam. Ask to see the machine work, every time, no matter how important the people standing next to it are. Next episode, forget a broken machine. This was one man, one apartment, and a number in a computer that grew for almost 40 years until it hit $65 billion. The biggest Ponzi scheme in history. That story is Bernie Madoff. Subscribe so you don't miss it. I'm Marcus Webb. Follow the money.